Good evening, Steve. Well, evening for me.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
If anybody's tuning into this, they mightn't recognise me and you, because me and you're a bit more shorn and a bit more, bit different, more represented than the last time we did this 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. It's good to be back.
Yeah, we're kind of doing the Rust and Marty kind of thing of changing haircuts, depending on the circumstance and the scene. But we've just been watching episode 5, of True Detective season 1, and as Heather is in the comments says, my favorite episode.
Nice.
I think it's probably my favorite episode as well, because a lot of stuff that's come home to roost, so to speak. So some of the stuff that you'll have heard me speculating about over the past while, that obviously done a decent enough breadcrumb trail to kind of lead me to this point successfully.
It's been so hard to not talk about this episode.
So it's a weird mix of feeling vindicated, but also like, but obviously it was all too obvious or something, you thought you're being clever or something, but yeah, all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure we'll get our way through it. But general impressions about this, is this one of your favorites as well, Steve?
I think so, yeah. It's one of my favorites. Yeah, it's up there for sure.
Yeah. And again, trying to go, you have narrative episodes, this is very much cards on the table. Like they just say in the episode, what's in the file behind you?
Yeah.
I can use the person who's going, well, what is in the file? I didn't know there was a file behind them. Tell me what is going to happen in the file behind them. And thankfully, they do kind of throw a bit of that out. But we'll start at the start. We'll start with the idea that they were, when we left at last, Ginger was in the back, or was kind of rescued in the back from the one take shot that went along there. And as it turns out, they were going to then try and find Ledoux.
Right.
So they go into a bar, and it's interesting because one of the themes of the episode, I think, is, and I have as my tagline here, who is Cole?
Yeah.
Who is he really, or what is he? And there's a lot of exploration of people who don't really know Cole, but judging him from the outside, who come from like a weird world.
Yeah, I'm curious what your thoughts are on what Ledoux tells him, because he tells him, I don't like your face. There's something in your eyes, in the dark in your eyes.
Yeah, there's a shadow in you, son.
Or a shadow. Yeah.
Isn't that the phrase that he says? He's got a demon inside him, and there's a shadow in you, which kind of again mimics this Satanistic, ritualistic, that he's almost from that world, or in some way, it's like a birth in the darkness, or the satanic world. Like, again, mimicking the iconography that we've seen of Cole as well, with the cross above his head and all of that kind of stuff, that actually he's no stranger to this world.
Yeah, it almost makes it, when he tells him that, it almost makes it feel real. Like there really is something going on here, instead of it just being, this person's crazy, he's like out of his mind. It almost gives it like legitimacy in a way, to say maybe something is happening here beyond, like, it's not just a physical thing. It's like something evil or something spiritual is going on here.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because sort of up to this point, everybody's either, has been a sort of shady character. I think everybody sort of already is, but people have been saying this stuff have been either prostitutes or heavy drug users, or, something. But there's like a common theme that kind of, again, runs through a lot of this episode, that people from all walks of life are going, but you don't represent who you say you are, or you don't fit the caricature of who you say you are.
Yeah, it almost seems like he sees, well, for as much as Cole is able to manipulate people and to get information and to get confessions out of people, he can manipulate people. He knows how to play people and kind of pull the levers that need to be pulled. But there are some people who figure him out really quick. Like Ledoux is right away, does not trust him. There's a shadow in you. I don't like your face. If I see you again, I'm going to do things to it, or something to that effect. Something to that effect. So it was interesting that the prostitutes that he was with before were almost like flirting with him. They wanted him to wanted to appeal to him in a different way. It wasn't like a transactional thing. It was like it was almost like doing a freebie almost. It wasn't like a transactional thing. It was like more of a sincere attraction to him. but Ledoux is it almost like he sees through him right away.
Yeah, and maybe from his obviously Ledoux has had a very troubled life, seen a lot of different people, a lot of bad people, and been in place inside with people like that, and can kind of maybe recognize it a bit quicker than maybe the common man. You know, seeing evil for what it is, or seeing like a darkness in somebody for what it is. Behind maybe the nice pressed shirt and the nice clean cut do that he has.
Yeah.
Really, really, really interesting. But it was interesting. Like once that kind of he shuts him down, and then you know Cole's still got this pretense with Ginger going on about sort of who he is. He still hasn't really twigged, but Marty's doing the police work. You know, he follows Ledoux and kind of does all that kind of bit. But you then get the first breakdown of where the questioning from the two detectives is happening, and the divergence of the truth and what they're saying. Yeah, it very clearly shows the split.
So okay. So what was your reaction when they were showing what was happening, and then the narration didn't match? What was your reaction to that as a first time watcher?
Well, again, there's this idea of, I think this is represented in previous episodes, is like Marty and Cole kind of concocted a story to cover themselves, right? But my whole feeling through the whole of it is, who does this retelling of the story benefit, or what does it remove? You know, because to me they could have just told the original story, and from what we see, it sort of would have been fine. Okay, they ended up sort of killed. Somebody ends up dead and all the rest of it. But again, as soon as you find the kids or otherwise, and then you come to the realization that even the stuff that we're seeing of what happened, is that even still what happened?
Oh, that's an interesting point. Yeah, because he does shoot him in the face when he's handcuffed on the ground. So I think most people would say, yeah, he deserved it. You did the right thing. But from a legal standpoint, it's like, okay, you can't shoot someone who's cuffed and secure in the face when they serve no threat. They have no, they don't pose a threat to you.
Yeah.
So I think they took the and there was a line when after that happened that Cole tells Marty, like, you're at least I'm just happy you're finally committing to something.
That's great. It was a bit of a zinger. It certainly was. But it did. There's that whole discussion between the guy that's shot in the face and Cole again, where he basically calls him out and uses an awful lot of this iconography and language. Like he talks about the Carcosa and what the other bits that I'd written down, the Black Stars rise. He sees you in the time as a flat circle. And this time as a flat circle thing is interesting because it comes back round and something that Cole says to the detectives later on when he's talking about his own theories, and again, there's Cole's kind of feeding off other people and their own shit, nearly representing it as his own. It's almost like he's the chameleon all the time, you know, trying to fit his surroundings.
And you're right, and he does repeat that phrase in the interview, and he talks about it. Obviously, he doesn't say that that's what that person told him.
Yeah, indeed.
But it almost the way that he talks about time being a flat circle, and we're in this room together again and again and again. It's forever. It's never going to end. It's almost like it changed him in a way. Like that whole experience had this profound effect on him that's still with him 20 or 17 years later, whatever.
17 years later. Plus the fact that he was going through a period where he had re-immersed himself back in the Vice world. You know, he was partaking in whatever he was doing, and that he sort of can't let that bit go, possibly, you know, chemicals in the system. But that they often say that the things that happen under the effects of drugs kind of do or can be life-changing. You sort of make connections on levels and ways that maybe you don't previously see. But it is interesting how, you know, again, for a lot of it, you kind of see the bad guys, the good guys is very separate and disparate, you know, and Cole very much is probably one of the good guys. And actually the blurring of the lines are really starting to happen very much in front of our eyes in kind of one short space of time.
That's interesting. I didn't think about it that way. I did have a question for you about Ledoux in the bar. Did he intend? Okay, so I think their original intention was for Ledoux to take Cole.
Yes, and do this exchange.
Yeah, so that would have been, I think, more dangerous than what actually happened.
That's interesting. Because obviously the plan was for them to take them together, and then they find out basically where Ledoux was, or abduct him on the way, or do something. But yes, it is almost more dangerous how it happened. But given that Cole was probably just looking for a fall guy, it actually worked out perfectly because it gave him deniability and a set of circumstances with which to have him murdered, even though Marty was the one that did the murdering, so to speak, and a lot of, or at least set the firecracker off, in terms of doing the first shot. So that, I mean, I did wonder about how carefully managed that was, but given that Marty did it first, it gave him a reason for Marty to buy into the story. Because if it had been just Cole doing it, then Marty might have went, no, let's just say what happened. But in this case, Marty was okay. Yeah, I took the first shot. I lost the head and did that kind of stuff and let them both buy in.
So it sounds like you have your mind made up about something. That's what it sounds like.
Well,
like Cole was looking for a fall guy. It sounds so. Are you taking an angle of it? Are you thinking that might be a possibility?
I think I'd said previous weeks that to me, Cole, it's pretty much exactly what the detectives called him out on a bit later in the episode, which is the fact that at the very least, he was a fixer. He was somebody that had met some bad guys or had some dealings with some people before and went, those people need to be put away. It doesn't matter if it's for this crime, but we've got to take them out in some way and therefore kind of square a circle. And even to go into that a bit better, the fallout from them kind of resolving this case, or that they pinned it on Ledoux, who just happened to be dead, well, exploded as it turned out, into bits. Cole went into a happy period of his life where he settled. He was able to make new relationships. He was able to settle down. It was almost like the serial killer who has had his recent kill could function in normal society again. And that only lasted till a certain point.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been on the. It's as likely to be Cole as anybody else in this scenario. He fits, like I think I said a few weeks ago. He fits the Criminal Minds representation of his character. He ticks all those boxes of the people that are likely to perpetrate crimes like this. However, there are still a lot of very open threads that we have not really had explored, even from episode 1 the whole way through. So again, getting this detectives to call him out in this is sort of something that I think I certainly already knew was a possibility, and that's why I was kind of like, oh, they've revealed this at episode 5. It's not just this. This is we've still a couple of episodes to go here. There's revelations still to come here, but there's no doubt that Cole is a character with dual purpose at the very least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. So the first, I remember the first time I watched the shootout scene, and I loved what they did with that whole scene, because typically you would think what would happen is what they told the investigators is what happened. That's what you think is going to happen. And they talk about the shootout in previous episodes. So I thought it's going to be a shootout. That's going to be like a Wild West kind of thing, and they're going to be guns going off and bark flying everywhere, and they're diving into the weeds or whatever. That's not what happened. And I think that's great. I just love that it's not at all what you expect.
Well, it's almost like there's like a calmness and a sereneness about it. I mean, they basically just creep through and then they walk into the house.
Yeah.
They say, hey, you come outside, kneel down, cuff him, and everything is very quiet. Even when Ledoux comes out and spots them, he kind of runs away, and it's all very quiet until kaboom, he gets blown up by sort of one of his own minds in a way. But Cole very quickly switches to, we need to dress the scene. It's almost like he had pre-planned that, grab the assault rifle and let's start spraying. While Marty's doing all their stuff, he's very much in setting the scene and saying, we can't hang around here. We got to set the scene and do this. And it did come into my mind, like, I'm not really sure the purpose of the two kids in the set. The kids that they find in the carry-out, with one being dead and one kind of comatose.
I think that's what throws Marty over the edge. And
yeah.
But do you mean in like another sense, or like what?
No,
what
I mean in sense, what were Ledoux and the other kind of doing with them to the point that they were there, or was it again another part of Cole's plan that if we come out with the kids, then all other questions would be kind of brushed aside? It's different if they come out with two bodies. There's questions to be asked there, bad guys, whatever, but were they guilty? Come out with the two kids and it just obfuscates kind of what's happening. So who or where did the kids come from, and what were they doing there in the first place? Did Ledoux, etc., even know the kids were there? So all of this kind of stuff uh, sits about. So yeah, anyway, you look for the reasons for things that happen, narratively or otherwise.
What I love too about this, about the retelling, that the lie that they tell the investigators, is that all these years later, and we know that they have a falling out for some reason
Yeah.
eventually, because they've referenced it. But even after the fallout, even after they haven't spoken so many years, and there's a general distaste for each other, kind of get the impression, they still tell the same exact story. Neither of them change their story at all. They both stick to the story.
And they're very definite, you know. I mean, they both have something to lose at that stage because they've obviously went in front of the internal committee and told it. So if actually they're found to be plagiarizing that, then there are repercussions for the two of them. But I find what was fascinating about that exploration is actually how much Marty is very much in Cole's corner. In fact, I would say a lot more than is represented earlier on from the first couple of episodes. He's like, oh no, Cole's a good, solid guy, you know, or he's very much a clever guy. Even the part where he says, "So you've spent this much time with Cole, and you're trying to get a reading him. He's been getting a reading you."
Yeah, I like that. That was a little creepy.
Yeah, because you could definitely feel it, especially because it was around the time they were doing where Cole started regurgitating all of the story about the split the circle and a flat circle, and you could kind of see all of this is just it was a bit like remind me very much of Usual Suspects.
Yeah.
With I'll not spoil Usual Suspects, but when you kind of like they spin the story from what the experiences of the story that they've been telling, they kind of weave their own narrative with everything that's going on to kind of obfuscate what's going on, and you're like, okay, interesting.
Very interesting.
Again, who is Cole?
Who is Cole? What was your? So when they did go into the house and they found that the person, I don't think they say his name, but the things that he talks about and the way his that really like this creepy, like time as a flat circle. It's the black star, Carcosa. Like it's like what, like just imagine being in that position and you have this guy who's saying all this crazy stuff and you have another guy at gunpoint, you know, just this way to like, you know, because you know what the story they're telling isn't what actually happened, but then they build to this point where he's at gunpoint and there's this other person on his knees and cuffs, and it's like, what do you do? Like you're in this position where you can't chase after one and leave the other, and Marty is in the, you know, finding the kids. So it's a very like this really high tension kind of moment.
But also Cole's listening to him. You know, he is speaking, and it's almost as if it's sort of making sense to Cole what he's saying. You know, it's almost got some relevance or some resonating with him because he just lets him speak. And if you see, like the later scenes when Cole's doing the interrogating with other people, he's very much in control of the narrative and the investigation. And whereas in this case, it's very much the other way around. The person in control is in handcuffs and on his knees with his arms behind his back, etc. And it's all okay. It's like a considered thing. And again, almost like Cole has heard a lot and knows what he's talking about, or he knows some relevance to it. So,
do you think that they maybe recognized him?
I never got the sense that he recognized him, other than he recognized his demeanor is the wrong word. You know, again, that association with the language that he's talking about, the things that he's talking about, he knows the kind of circles that he's been running in, which is, again, very plausible given that, you know, Cole's been working in Vice and around these areas, etc. as well, and may well have been very deep and knows a lot of these people, which, again, fits the narrative of the dude did another crime, needed to pay for it, and so they pinned it on him. So...
interesting theory.
And yeah, indeed. But I think this is some of my favorite types, especially in serialized TV, where you feel or you can pick a theory from early on that you feel's a bit out there and connecting a lot of loose dots, but actually pays off a little bit down the other way. Whether again it's another red herring or not, it doesn't really matter. But they give you enough tiny breadcrumbs for you to get there yourself, which makes you feel clever as the person watching it, but also not clever enough that you think, but I'm right, and I don't think I'm right still. You know, that kind of sense, and that if you can do that enough times, like that's so difficult to do in terms of writing, because how do you just give somebody just the tiniest amount but not enough to kind of go? And they've done it very skillfully the whole way through here, and in different ways, sometimes through comments, sometimes through words. Again, they do a bit of that towards the end of this episode as well, so flirting, you know, a name with a surname that we've heard beforehand, but not the same person that we've been talking about beforehand in terms of Tuttle, etc. You just kind of have this thing where they throw names out there and you go, oh, your ears prick up. It's a bit like the Black Carcosa thing as well. Oh, we've heard that multiple times beforehand. Or the connection with the LSD, you kind of go, oh, that makes sense. All of that kind of people, and the people who have said these things before, or the Yellow King, isn't it? Yeah. All these things that we may have heard beforehand just kind of tie together and you go, juicy.
And they seem very eager to close the case because they figured out Ledoux had associations, right, with Dora Lang's
husband Charlie. Yeah.
So they have that connection, and then they were able to match the drugs, the LSD, to what she had in her system.
Yeah.
But that's circumstantial. I mean, they just seem so eager to close it out. Like, okay, done deal, we're done. You solved it. Congratulations. Let's all move on. They seem very quick to want to just wrap this up and say we're done.
Well, again, it pipes back to the end of episode 3 or whatever it was when they discovered about Ledoux, and then Cole was like, "Oh no, let's go." It's the first time he was really, you know, oh, let's just go straight for this again. That narrative of, you know, he had decided a long time ago who this was going to be and kind of leave the breadcrumbs out there for Marty to find. So again, it looked like Marty's idea, but he's like, yeah, I'll get my jacket.
I don't know. We'll see.
Let's go. Well, that's the thing. But again, there's a lot of like new threads that are opened up here as well in terms of investigation. You see the things again. Another thing that I really like about the show is the fact that they show detective work happening, but what's on screen doesn't really relate to what we've just been told about. It's like a new line of theory and questioning and investigation that obviously is going to be explored probably further on the line, but they don't spell it out for you. They just kind of see if you can put together what's been happening here, or what has actually gone on in Cole's head, or what he would like to do. Even the fact that he's been seen on the scene and photographed at the scene of these new cases and new murders, and that he's very much involved. All very mysterious.
And you mentioned they give you clues in other ways and hints. Another thing they do with other than dialogue is just like shadows and the facial expressions at the end. When Cole is in that old school, his face is very cold, and he looks he has like this like he's not really there, like he's someone else almost. He's like a someone we haven't met yet almost.
Yeah, I thought that whole scene was fascinating how it was shot, even because of the light streaming in through the eyes, and I actually have the thing that he's holding up is almost like an angel or a seraphim. Is what I had. He's holding it up, and the light shining through, and again a very biblical kind of religious iconography screen, and then again with the look of him, it is almost like, I'm trying to think of what the phrase I'm searching for, almost like a petrified kind of religious thing, where again all the colors drained from his face, and like almost like a stone.
Yeah.
Kind of statue in ways, and almost like a pose, and then they pull out, and then you see again the hints of like this canvas through the window of the drawings of on the wall and stuff. Like, oh man, so much going on here, and especially because Cole's doing this himself. Yeah, this isn't stuff that he's inviting Marty into. This is the stuff that this feels like the real investigation, if that makes sense. In terms of Cole's. He's got that bit done, but this is, I'm still investigating this, or I'm still going, which again links into him still pursuing it years later and being involved, and that he knew the case wasn't solved, but he got his man. He got the man that he wanted to have done for beforehand. Whether that's to protect himself or whether it's to investigate it a bit further or investigate that world, we don't know at this stage.
So, a couple of questions for you about Cole. So,
Mm.
first question is, what was your reaction to Cole's reaction during that interrogation when the man says, "I have information about the Yellow King"?
Mm.
So his reaction to that was very swift and very. He reacted very quickly. Second thing is on the section where they show him and the girl he was dating for a couple of years.
Hmm.
He looks very detached. Like they're doing normal couple things, and he looks like he's bored out of his mind. Like he does not want to be there.
So I'll do that one first because I think that's very much that sociopath thing of that he needed the partner to keep up pretenses. You know, as if I'm living a normal life, I'm existing within this world, and nobody's asking any questions because I have a steady relationship. She's a
Yeah.
steady job. I've got a promotion. It's very much um, keeping up appearances, you know, in some ways. But I mean, he's never shown at any stage that he was ever interested in a relationship, family, even though, again, the story was that he had a wife and a kid that was killed, etc. And we've kind of thought that that changed him and hurt him. But also, I'm not so sure now. I haven't
Hmm.
seen him do this insofar as, you know, is this Cole's a sociopath almost certainly. From now, I think we've got enough evidence of that, of how he's related, and that he's actually laserly focused on a certain small set of things, whether it's the original case of the Ill King, which brings back to the other point that is like we go from a situation where he is completely in control of the
Hmm.
situation. He has planted and got the confession for the double homicide out of the guy, which is, I have to say, just an absolutely terrific performance by the guy that was in the seat there. Two words, basically. You know, it's kind of a bit, you don't know anything, you don't know anything. To then these two words that are, again, the laser focus. You don't see that engagement with him in his new relationship. You don't see any relationship with that even when he's with anybody else. But as soon as those words are spoken, he loses it, and it's the first time. Sorry, the second time we've seen him lose control. Although I would argue that the first time when he goes back into the bar and beats the information out of the guys, he was completely in control of. You know, he was just extreme violence in that case. This is the first time we've seen him actually something trigger inside him, and then you think, well, why would the Yellow King trigger him? And there are only a couple of ways that registers in my head as why it would annoy him.
So it's almost either as if is he obsessed with it so much that he's obsessed with the case, or is it for another reason that he's
Is it for another
connected
reason?
somehow?
Yeah. So I mean, a couple of options there, and I'll spell them out because I obviously don't know anything. So either it is the laser focus in the case, and he has been working it for years and years and years, and has come to a dead end, and he hasn't heard anybody talk about serious bits about it until he hears this, what seems to be just a random person know an exact point about the case. Or is he the Yellow King? And again, thought he didn't know anything about it or otherwise. So again, how do you break somebody's veneer of, you know, of coolness or otherwise? You kind of hit them with something that kind of makes them go, oh, maybe I am not a best kept secret, or maybe there's a secret that I know about that people should know about. But there's this random dude who just murdered two people in a pharmacy that all of a sudden knows some details about this. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. So again, 3 episodes to go. Isn't it? Isn't there eight? I think there's eight
I think
episodes.
there's 8. Is
I
there
think
8?
it's it. I think
I
it's
think
it.
so.
So there's still a lot of story to tell. When you think about how much happened in this one episode in terms of, you know, taking you on a ride.
Just
Uh,
the non gunfight alone could have been an episode.
yeah, well, I can
There's
think of
so much.
lots of series that would have just done that whole episode just in that one location,
Yeah,
and interspersed
stretched
in
it
with
out.
an explanation at the far end of them just of what they said happened at the end, but they didn't do
Mm.
it like that. It was very much, it was so interestingly done. They have the calm and sereneness of what actually happened being layered with the story that they were telling, and you're like, this didn't okay, and it's been very crystal clear that you as the person watching it knows that these two things couldn't be more diversely different. Let's be under no confusion. You know the way that they do it, and the great acting with Joel this one is like what was the Because Marty says it's heavy shit. It was heavy shit. It was going down and they're cutting around and they're just kind of sneaking through the stepping over tripwires and all of that kind of stuff very slowly.
And it's also at the beginning of the episode. It's like the first what 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, I have it as scene 2. I've started doing scene 1, scene 2 in terms of like big set piecey or kind of themey ideas. So it was basically the second scene.
So that's interesting too. That usually those kind of sequences are the climax or like the end of the episode or kind of what you leave off on. But it's the beginning, and then you see what happens after. It's almost as if what happens after is more significant than what happens at the fight.
I was going to say that. So the knowledge that was not what happened is the setup for what's going to come afterwards for sure. And but again, I also think it's very interesting that we have the crime solved. We have this sort of like Rocky montage of them living normal lives. You know, Maggie and Marty get back together. Cole's in a relationship. They're out for dinner, having drinks together. They're sort of doing okay. And yet there's still a couple of events two-handed. One with the revelations that the detectives bring about Cole. And then also this interrogation scene. Because they set up the interrogation scene by basically saying that Cole was shipped around all around the county to come in and interrogate and get confessions, you know, out of people as a thing. And so again, at the start it looks like they're showing you how good he is at interrogations, but there's an edge to it.
I also noticed, I don't know if I've noticed before, but this time watching it, I noticed that during the interrogation scene, his hairline is a little bit more receding than before. Like you could see the small changes in their appearance. So they did adjust it a little bit for the time lapse.
Yeah, there was that. Well, he definitely has his hair cropped an awful lot shorter. In fact, I would say I'm mimicking it at the moment. But yeah, where Marty is back to the kind of relaxed look that he'd had, you know, when he was happily married. But yeah, there is almost like a heightened stress on Cole that it, again seems to be part of this. Enough time has passed and his life sort of evolved. And you said about the boredom, you know, that was on his face when he was in his relationship. You know, that sereneness there, the lull that he got from solving the crime beforehand, continued for a period of time, but at a certain point it was just falling off. So it was almost like he's spoiling for something to happen at that stage. Which again, another kind of reason to say why I exploded when he heard about the Yellow King. It was like bring it back into laser focus, like his body was on the edge. But like I say, the receding hairline, the kind of time is supposed to have passed. Yeah. You know, a couple of years goes. Yeah, indeed. So
the first time I watched it, I wondered if it was what you were saying, if he's, you know, covering his tracks, if he's bored, if he has to lay low, he's playing the part, or is it that he never believed that they really solved it. He just kind of went along with it because everyone was happy. He got a promotion. It kind of like he was liked again.
Yeah.
But he knew deep down it was never solved. He knew it was never over. Like it was something was still there. So that's where I was going back and forth with is he obsessed with the case, or is there something else? Is he part of it somehow?
But regardless of he's a very intense individual anyway. You know, I think that was shown very early doors, and that sort of is postulating for the first couple of episodes where people were saying, "Oh, it's this type of character." Marty was going. He's going. It's definitely not that, Marty. Like you're barking so far up the wrong tree. And he has his notebook and his ledger. And it's funny enough, his notebook and his ledger didn't really appear here very much. You know, it seemed to disappear in the background as if, you know, he didn't need it because he'd already decided what was going to happen. You know, he wasn't recording things at that stage. It was out. But then when he goes back and starts to investigate the old crime scene, you know, that kind of ideas. Well, if we haven't got the right person, where are all the other bodies? You know, surely there should be more bodies in here. And you get the investigation, you get the isn't the bit where he's doing the computer search where he says, you know, it's like the missing persons case is what I said, and you know, wrongly reported or something. It was said, you know, it was missing person, made an error, but just a whole slew of them. It's like, oh, well, maybe there are more bodies and we just don't know about them. And when he goes to out investigate the tree again, the thing's a very different setting and a different kind of look to it, with the kind of like, I don't know, the hole in the middle of the tree, but I was kind of thinking it was like a maelstrom or like a cyclone kind of effect. Yeah, well, like the flat circle, indeed. I did
Yeah.
actually write that down. That's your
Yeah.
black circle. To go and do, and you kind of go,
And I
ooh.
think they even when they're in the car, I think they even talk about. I think Marty asks him, "Well, why haven't we heard about it if he's still out there?" And he says, "Well, maybe he is still killing. We just haven't found it yet. Haven't found
Yeah.
him yet." So
And seeing who those kids are. Because again, while they're driving there, there's another missing persons billboard. The same iconography that we've had since, the start, when they
yeah.
kind of go around and see there are these missing women, or otherwise, the way through.
And in fact, the investigators ask him when they start pressing him at the end of the investigation. They ask him, "Do you ever black out and not wake up not knowing where you are?" And so
Mm,
that adds another layer to it. Does he not know if he is doing this? Is
mm.
he doing it unknowingly? And he thinks he's a detective solving a case, but he's really the killer, or he's both,
But
not
whatever it
knowing.
is, exactly. All
Yeah.
these things are possibilities for sure. And as I'm saying, they drop these little nuggets in to kind of say, uh, all these things are very possible. Like I've kind of floated the idea that is Cole even Cole? Was
Mm.
Cole another detective in another part of and he assumed his identity, to kind of do all these things. Again, all these things being the kind of character that we now get to meet. And I do think back to the first episode when people who'd watched this before, when I think you'd asked the question, or Aaron had asked the question, something like the fact, so who's your favorite between Cole
Mm.
and Marty? And I was stunned to hear people say Marty, and I was like, but why? Cole's way cooler. He's way smarter. But if you've watched the thing before, the character flaws become much more evident around this stage of the show, and you kind of go, actually, well, Marty is the dependable, more straight up and down person that we seem to be seeing. His flaws are very much on show
Mm.
for all to see, or certainly it appears that at start, whereas Cole's are maybe buried a bit deeper, a bit
And
surrounded in mystery.
Marty has some great dial. Some he talks about when he said things were good for a while. There were some good years, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't realize you're in the good years until they're over.
Until they're over, yeah.
Oh, I would love that line. It's such a great line that you don't realize, because we go through periods of, I don't want to say peace, but like calm. We have our ups and downs, but we don't have anything major. Like he says, until you get cancer and die.
Yeah.
So we go through ups and downs, but you look back and say, those are some good years I just had. But you don't realize it until after.
Yeah. It's the bit that I'm always a bit hesitant to say. Do you know when you're like we all go through these periods, we go, God, I'm struggling a bit, or I'm doing
Mm.
whatever. Like I'm very much a thing of like our experiences are all framed with a certain narrative in our head. What's one person can think of as positive can be negative and vice
Mm.
versa. And that, as you say, like it could be something really bad happens 6 months down the line. You go, oh man, how I wish it was 6 months ago when I thought I was sort of struggling, but I
Yeah.
wasn't really, things were bothering me. So, and you do get a sense of that. I think they do that whole exploration of Marty's family, and they see the kids growing
Mm.
up and what
Yeah.
he, that kind of, I mean, something I can definitely identify with the two young girls, and the kind of the princess crown gets. I love that the way that was shot and represented, like the changing of the guard or changing of life when they throw the princess crown, it gets stuck up above, and it's sort of represented that one of those kids is going to die and fall out of the tree at that
Mm.
stage, and then it cuts forward, and you're sort of a bit confused and discombobulated about the time jump, because it's not an obvious one
Yeah.
with the daughter coming in.
And he does talk about he talks about his biggest sin being
Mm-hmm.
inattention.
Rather than infidelity. Yeah,
Mm.
another great line as
Yeah.
well. I thought thought the infidelity was going to be my greatest sin, but it turns out it was inattention and not like details. And again, it's represented that he's talking about his two daughters, but it could
Mm.
be any amount of things that he could be talking about in terms of noticing Cole, or noticing what was happening, or noticing his inattention with his wife. Like again, he talks about the fact that things were better when Maggie can get back together, but there's nothing about Maggie's demeanor that
Mm.
suggests that she's in this relationship in any way that she was beforehand. It's very much a convenience thing, or
Yeah.
something like that.
Like
For
expectations almost, like she doesn't look well at dinner. They look like they're okay, but that's when they're with the other
the
couple.
kid. Yeah. Oh
But
yes,
when they're
but that
together,
was
they don't seem things just aren't the same.
again the deadness in her eyes
Mm.
when she doesn't see, or she's not. enamored with him probably the way that she was when they first met, and when he
Yeah.
probably thought he was funny and whatever.
Yeah, just these little subtle details in the performances that make the biggest difference
Hmm.
in how kind of like setting up how everyone is feeling.
Yeah, it's just performances, and I often wonder, some of that will be the actors, and some of
Mm.
that will be the writing. It'll be in the script, and I often wonder, the more that I hear about this kind of stuff, uh, it's often performers and cast, they all bring their own ideas to it, and some way it kind of gets put together, and you get something that's great in the sum of its parts,
Yeah.
and as what it was written. But yeah, it helps when you've got a couple of actors as good as McConaughey, Michelle Monaghan,
Yeah.
you
She's
know,
great too.
Woody
She's
Harrelson.
spectacular too.
Just
Yeah.
terrific. The whole cast and crew that you've got together there is pretty special.
Oh yeah. All-star cast and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
I did find so when the um, when the breakdown of the detectives comes ahead, and you have the younger detectives start to sort of break character very quickly, and he gets called out of the room. I think it's the
Yeah.
first time I actually noticed the kind of difference in seniority between the two characters,
Yeah.
or that one was even significantly younger than the other one.
Yeah, he did almost like pull rank on him a little bit
He
and
did
kind
come
of
on
like,
outside,
yeah.
and they decide to kind of throw it at him. I think it's interesting that they let him spew the whole load of crap about the beer can and the metaphor and all that kind of stuff. And I think myself as a viewer going, "Oh, this is just shit, Cole. Come on, like I haven't been called out it yet, but this is just garbage. This isn't even the intelligible stuff that they come. Now you sound like the drunk."
Yeah. And he talks about those kids being in that room again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
And he's mentioned that before about, you thought you were a person, but you were just alone in a dark room or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I forget the exact quote. And then it's a previous episode. So they all kind of connect all these ramblings he has.
Yeah, and then the fact that they produce and say, "Look, you've just been talking crap for a while." But most interesting, I think, is the scene with Marty when they show it to Marty and say, "Look, what do you think? You must have connected the dots here in some way yourself. This is what we know about him. This is what we know was lies, etc." And just see Marty looking at the stuff at the table and going, "Hmm,
Yeah. And he looks at them as they're talking, and he's kind of, you can see him processing what they're saying. Kind of like, he always made the case go where he wanted it to go. He always found the evidence. He knew where to look, and it was always him. It was never you.
mm-hmm."
So they were putting all these thoughts in his head.
Which again could be a double switch because maybe Marty was like I think it's been represented like for as much as Marty is a failed character, a bit of a meathead. Sometimes he is an intelligent, good cop. At the end of the day, like he is capable. So, and often I think a lot more capable than people ever give him credit for.
Mm.
In terms of all of those things. So, maybe the chances that he's working an angle the whole way through, just the same as Cole. They could both be working angles. They could have intentionally fallen out to kind of create a scenario where they were being pitted against each other, or they could kind of be looked at. All these things are like very possible because these two people are intelligent people and good
Mm.
cops.
Yeah, when Marty's not distracted, it seems like he's pretty good.
Yeah, indeed. Well, no, but showing her, well, know her as the case may be,
Yeah.
and sharp look, and the fact that he is getting interviewed in what is quite clearly a place of work for him still.
Mm.
Even the arrangement, the seating, I think I've talked about before, that he's in control sort of a bit more in that room, whereas Cole is the logger lout and all that kind of stuff. And the fact that he challenges them, say, get a warrant. I
Yeah.
think we're done here. It does kind of scream that he's a bit threatened now.
Mm. What do you think he's threatened?
Who knows? I mean, this the great unknown. He he thought he was there in one capacity, and he's again. I'd say he's threatened because he's not totally in control anymore of the situation in the way that he thought he was, or that he's had enough of playing the game and he just wants to get out. And say, right, enough of this pretense. We're both pissing about here. I came here to find out what you know about the case. You've come here to know what I find out what I know about. We've kind of come in the end. We're at an impasse about now.
I'm done with my beer. I'm out of here.
Yeah, exactly. There's no more
Yeah,
beer left. You
yeah,
didn't
he's
get
done.
any more beer.
No more
Uh,
people. No more tin can people.
Indeed. The other major part was obviously the murder of the guy himself in the cell,
Oh yeah.
and the fact that, I mean, I have to say it didn't even occur to me, and given all that I've said about him, that it was actually Cole could have possibly have made the call from the payphone. That's exactly, even the fact that that was floated out there makes me think that it probably wasn't, but that hadn't even occurred to me at that stage. But of course, it is very much a possibility, especially if you go down certain ideas with, the Yellow King, what that means, etc. Um,
And he had to have gotten something sharp to cut himself with.
well, was it
So,
the sink? Did he crack the
oh, is
sink?
the sink? Oh, okay.
I think again, it was kind of not obvious, but it looked like the sink was cracked, and he'd used the
Hmm.
ceramic edge of the sink. But that's pretty extreme kind of thing to
You
mutilate yourself in that way.
to really want to, yeah,
It is interesting, and I mean the fact that it was floated was Cole. Cole, he was afraid of Cole at that point. The young man's, when they were in the thing. So it is possible they do throw that name up about is it Marty around that stage? They said the word Billy Lee Tuttle.
yeah,
Who obviously Tuttle being, he isn't Billy Lee, but he's the governor. And again, there's people. And Marty says, "Why you Oliver Cole or I walk as well? What
yeah,
is the crack here?" And they kind of pull it together. But that whole suicide, and again, so masterfully shot. They didn't have to show it all. They just
yeah.
kind of showed the blood leaking out the bottom of the cell and stuff. And you go, man,
That's a lot of blood.
that's a lot of
But
blood.
you cut yourself like that, you bleed out a lot. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. We have a lot of that red liquid in us, so
Indeed, indeed.
made a big mess.
Got to spill out somewhere. So, yeah. Man, it's a good episode of TV.
Yeah, really good. Oh, that's so good. Yeah,
I'm excited to see where it goes next. I have to say, it was another one where you kind of go, I could just watch on.
yeah, yeah. It was a tough one too.
But I don't wanna. I don't wanna. I wanna kind of. It's so much more rewarding to kind of think about it for a few days, come here and kind of talk about it and discuss with you, and then kind of stick my theories and stick my thoughts out there to kind of, it sort of validates whether you're right or wrong further in the line.
Yeah.
That you kind of owned it in some way, and you're like, okay, I didn't see that coming, or I did see that coming, or I thought that maybe that. But at this point, I feel like I've postulated every possible possibility that it could be good, bad, or otherwise. So one of them's bound to be right. It's the kind of thing I do with my wife all the time when she's talking about. I told you that was going to happen. I said, you've got about 90 theories.
Yeah, that was one of them, though, right?
It was one of them. You definitely called that one. I told you it was him. And I'm like, oh, what? I don't know. So,
Oh, so good though. One of my favorites.
yeah, indeed. So I mean, whatever happened, Laurie, Cole's girlfriend, I don't know. Maybe we'll never see her again. I don't know. She seemed to have her moment in time, and now doesn't seem to be around. She's not cutting his hair. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
He's looking pretty rough.
they do float the idea. The other thing that I had written down here actually was about, it's the first time that, again, it's been brought up by the characters, that the task force was so hot to take over. And, did you never wonder why they were so keen to swoop in and just take it all up and blah, blah, blah? Which is something that obviously the audience has been wondering as well the whole way along, but nobody seemed to be recognizing it. So,
yeah, it makes you wonder.
Does indeed. So that's all my notes. That's my 700 words covered.
Oh, 700 words, really?
Well, I don't know, something like that. It definitely is. It's a considerable piece of writing on my behalf to do. Yeah,
That's a lot. There's a lot in this episode. A lot of stuff.
there is. I really like kind of watching it and pulling it apart and
Yeah.
kind of thinking about it and relaxing it. And what's really nice is, like, when some of the words or names come up, because I've made notes for previous episodes, you go, was that from a previous episode? And go back and check.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's handy. A lot of names.
Yeah, a lot of names.
references. Yeah,
Yeah.
come a long way. They've come a long way.
Indeed. 5 episodes. Man, it feels like I've lived an awful lot of the events that happen in it.
Yeah.
It's interesting, that. Oh, well.
So good.
Anything else, Steve?
No, I think we covered everything.
That's cool. So, a
I'm,
great
I'm
fun
afraid
episode.
to say too much.
Yeah, absolutely. This must be so hard.
It is, yeah. But
Yeah.
we'll get to it. It's interesting hearing your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
We'll see how it turns out.
We'll see how it goes. So we're back on your channel again next week then?
Yeah. Episode 6, and then we have, I think, 2 more after that.
I think so.
Yeah.
We get the big conclusion.
Yeah.
So looking
it'll
forward to it.
Lots of things coming.
Yeah. That's good. That's nice to know we're not just gonna go quite slowly into the night.
Oh no, there's lots more to come.
Good. Although, as Heather quite rightly says, if this was her favorite episode, it doesn't get any better than this. So there you go.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, one of my favorites. Just period. I think this is the episode altogether. Just one of the most memorable.
Interesting, because I mean, especially when you consider the main set piece is a non-set piece, but yet that still ranks that highly for you, you know,
because it's not what you expect at all.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Cool. So if anybody's looking to catch up with you, Steve, where would they find you?
Either Steve Talks Books or Steve Talks Movies, or at pagechewing.com.
Nice. And you can catch me
on Duro.
Oh, that one MFer.
Yeah, I can't.
So somebody might pay you. Somebody might pay you a lot of money and say, I want that name tag.
I don't think so. Somebody with a sense of humor, maybe. But
Indeed. Well, if you've made it this far, you can let us know what you thought of this episode down in the comments or otherwise. But if not, see you next week. And I'll catch us all then. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
All the best. Bye.